Hello everyone, I'm Wave, and I didn't expect to be making this video, but at the request of a couple different people, I am going to be here to give you guys a rundown on the various workarounds that I've found over the past couple years of my own personal experience reading visual novels for being able to read non-translated visual novels. I'm going to be showing a couple different programs and just a couple different ways about going and reading non-translated visual novels. So first off, you're gonna need Textractor, which is going to be this right here. I'll have the link to this download in the description. All you're gonna do is you're gonna go here to textractorsetup.exe, download that. You shouldn't really have any issues with it. Once you do get it going, you're going to end up having a sort of file like this. We're going to have times 64 or times 86. For me personally, I usually always go with 86. If we go ahead and we pull up to the actual application, and I go ahead and show you guys, this is what it's going to look like in general. So you have all these different options. You've got this little like drop down menu. We can close that out because I will go ahead and show you the first method, and probably the method you're going to be using the most when it comes to non-translated visual novels. Now there is an alternative to Textractor, being LunaHook. I've done a little bit of research into it. It is, to my knowledge, no longer being supported. So if you are going to look at LunaHook, you're going to be using whatever was the most recent version. For that, I would go ahead and recommend you go check out Ange's video on that, because he does a better breakdown on that and he has a lot more information. So I'll leave his video down in the description below. But for Textractor, I will go ahead and show you guys on a Japanese visual novel. Okay, so I have a visual novel pulled up here. Aster, for those of you that are keeping up with the channel, this is a visual novel that I'll probably read many months from now, but decided I needed something to set up for the purpose of this video. So we're just going to go ahead, brand new save file from the start. And all we want to do is we just want to get to a couple lines of dialogue in a Japanese visual novel. So here we go. We literally have the very first line of this game. We go ahead and we boot up Textractor. We can minimize that, and then you're gonna see this translate to English. For this, you might be thinking, oh, I have to go ahead and I have to swap things around, swap it to Japanese, or like figure out if it's Japanese, Chinese, whatever. No, you can literally leave it on the default setting. For this year, this is the only thing I believe I have changed from the default settings of Textractor. We can get into that once I've actually kind of gone into here. All these other menus you're not really going to need apart from this one here. What you're going to want to do is you're going to go ahead and just click attach to game, and you're going to scroll down until you find the game that is currently running. So for me, I'm looking for aster.exe. If you're having any sort of issues in finding your game when doing this, you're literally just going to look here at the top of your game. That's why it does help to kind of set this up in the minimize window. So we're going to go ahead and click attach to aster.exe. It's going to give you all these things that are saying like inserting hook, and then all you're going to do is you're just going to click through maybe like 2 or 3 times. Literally, we could probably just click that 2 times there, and then now we're going to go ahead and go back over to Textractor, and then we're going to go to this drop down. So actually looks quite easy for us right now. So I would say we have it right here, and this looks like it's about right. So what we can probably do here is we take this menu and we can kind of set it apart, and we can click again, and then what should be happening is, look at that, automatically is translating. Now depending on the game, I was actually quite surprised. It only gave me 2 hooks. I think Textractor does work better the older the visual novel that you are attempting to read. but a lot of the times maybe you'll have like anywhere between 1 to like, I want to say 7 or 8 hooks, and usually for me, anywhere between like hook 3 and 5, you're already going to get it. So if you're trying to attempt to hook to a game and you get a whole bunch of different options, don't freak out. It's pretty simple. I don't think you're really going to have to do a whole lot of bit of stuff when it comes to making sure that you're able to translate your Japanese visual novel. Now, so you could always set your dialog box that is showing the translation in real time over the actual normal text box, and then what you could do is you could right click here. You can change like the color, you can change a whole bunch of stuff, and I want to say the only thing that I've changed is the opacity. So let me see if I can actually pull that up. Yeah, so the only thing I've changed is the opacity. I feel like it's kind of good to be able to see the actual Japanese text underneath the box just ever so slightly, so that way you know when you click to a next line of dialogue, you can see that yes, it did change in game as well as in Textractor itself. Now, once you actually get a hook that you are happy with, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go back into Textractor, to that file that or to that screen that we attached the hook to, and then now all you're going to do is you're just going to click Save Hooks, and that's it. So now we can go ahead, I can close out of Textractor, I can close out of Aster itself, we can go ahead, boot Aster back up, so then now we have Aster back open, we can go ahead and click Start again, we can reopen the program, and what you're going to see is that it's automatically going to load all these hooks. So then now you're not going to have to do anything, or actually, let me show it again. I just saw it right before I minimized it. You see that it's already attached to aster.exe, and then when we click next line of dialogue, it's already going to translate it. So as long as you save your hook, you're going to have no issues. You could literally play this game a year from now, and as long as you're reading it on the same computer that you set it up on, it's going to remember all your information. So there you go. That's a pretty quick and brief tutorial on Textractor. Was there something else I wanted to mention? Yes. So only thing I've really customized was this max sentence size. I literally, up until I think at the start of this month, always had it on the default setting, which is I believe 1000. And reading clear is, there's a lot of text density when it comes to, you can see here, Aster, I click this line of dialogue, it's literally one sentence. The visual novel that I'm currently reading is sometimes will have an entire paragraph. So I've had to change the size on this window so that way I have more space for all of the dialogue. And then also, it's the one visual novel that Textractor works for that has issues with reading the lines sometimes. So that's been my only game that I've run into issues with when it comes to Textractor that is properly hooked to it. And so every once in a while I'll not be able to read a line or two because Textractor refuses to load it. I think in that way this does help alleviate it by upping the max sentence size. It makes it so that way it's trying to read more text that is being spit out by the program. You can go ahead and do that at your own discretion when it comes to if you have the same issues as I do. But overall, I don't think you really have to mess with the settings of Textractor. A lot of people will actually say that you can do all this stuff of manually searching for hooks, and you have to type in the Japanese text. And from my own experience, it doesn't ever really help. You can try to fight a game for 20 minutes and get it to work. It's probably not going to work. So in that way, we have our second program, or second workaround. Okay, so one thing I almost forgot to mention before we transition over to the next application would be in Textractor, Also forgot to mention, what you're probably going to want to do here is in this screen, in this menu, you're going to go ahead and just click filter garbage characters. What that's going to do is that for some reason it'll like repeat the same translation multiple times. So what you're going to do is you just click filter garbage characters, and that does reduce it. And by reduce, I don't think I've had that issue ever since. I want to say I only had that issue at the very start when I was first learning Textractor. As you can see, this is Sugoi Translator. This is a set of this is a package of multiple different translation tools all in one. So as you can see, not even just for visual novels, they also have it for untranslated manga or light novels. So it's a pretty handy tool to have at your disposal. And I want to say a few years back, even probably as of like maybe 6 months ago, it was available for free. And I want to say around the time that I was wrapping up finishing reading Infinite Stratos, I figured I would go ahead and update my files for Sugoi Translator, and was met with this. As you can see, the current build of Sugoi Translator is currently unavailable unless you subscribe to the creator's Patreon. It is available for free for a set time frame per month, so it looks like currently it is between the 15th and the 16th, so only 2 days out of the month. I'm going to go ahead and share a download link to an older build of Sugoi Translator, which is going to be right here. What you would do is you just download it. You're going to have to extract the files through a program such as 7-Zip, and then what you're going to have happen, like it happened to me, is you're probably going to get a pop-up for like your computer's security scan. I assure you I haven't had any issues. What I would do is just as soon as you finish extracting everything, go ahead, run your computer scans, make sure you're good. But like I said, you should be good. So that way you can try it out and get a feel for the program without having to wait too long to be able to download it normally. What I would say is that if you do find yourself finding a lot of value out of using Sugoi Translator and OCR Reader, I would urge you to consider maybe going and supporting the creator through their Patreon afterwards and getting the most recent build. That's all I'm going to say on it. So I'm going to go ahead and I will show you, I could show you an emulated game, but I will go ahead and pull up an example of a game that doesn't work with Textractor. And if you've been on my channel, you'll know, well, wait, my Tattoo Last Run works with Textractor, right? Yes and no. So I have the DLC. If we go ahead and I go to the store page, which should be right here, or we can just show DLC. Rail Romanesque is a console port of My Tattoo Last Run that has slightly better graphics, and then it was released as DLC later on back onto PC. So My Tattoo Last Run works perfectly well, but if we go ahead and we go to the actual DLC, which is Rail Romanesque, it's a separate application. I've noticed this game does not work with Textractor. So we can go ahead and I can show you trying to set it up on Textractor, and then I can hopefully walk you guys through the steps of showing you how to set this up through Sugoi or OCR instead. Once this loads, I want to say real quick while we're waiting for this to boot up, I could have gotten Textractor set up on Aster in like 2 minutes flat. It's not that difficult once you get into it. And once you get used to using Textractor, it's not that bad. So we're going to go ahead. I think this should be starting it up. So like I said, you want to get to a point where you have text on screen. So we can show you, I could demo trying to set it up with Textractor, seeing that it doesn't work, and then we can demo it with Sugoi instead. So if we go ahead and we go back into Textractor, open it up, minimize everything, and then we go to attach to game. I'm going to go down and I'm going to find Rail Romanesque origin.exe. It's going to hook. And then, well, so we see these little errors that say failed. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to click to the next line of dialogue. And we go back into our Textractor menu. And I go ahead and we click for the hooks that we have. As you can see, I'm getting my computer RAM. And we can mess around. We can spend all day going in and trying to set it up where I'm, like I said earlier, trying to find a line of dialogue here, putting it in, seeing if it connects, and probably pulling our hair out for the next 30 minutes to an hour trying to get this to work. There probably is a way to get it work, so I would say if you are somebody that's watching this video and you have more knowledge than I do, go ahead and leave that knowledge down in the comments below, because I'm sure that the people that are getting into reading non-translated visual novels would very much appreciate that extra little bit of knowledge that I do not have at my disposal. Now we can go ahead and we can close out of Textractor again, and I'm going to go ahead and show you on Sugoi instead. So we're going to do with Sugoi Translator offline. So this is going to boot up a whole bunch of different menus. Note where Textractor kind of doesn't use your CPU of your computer, it doesn't really require a whole lot of processing power. OCR Reader does, so I would say the less tabs you have open, the better performance you're probably going to get. Now what we're going to do is you see that we have a little window here, just like how Textractor does, showing what has been translated. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click start, and what you're going to get is this big menu here. So this is where things get interesting. So it's a little bit more involved setting up OCR compared to Textractor. So if I'm trying to get everything kind of in one nice little screen for you, what you're going to do is you're going to take this window here being a scanner. This is what is going to be looking for text, and this is going to be taking the imaging of the actual visual novel and extracting it, translating it in real time. So we set up our box around our text here, and then what we're going to do here is you're just going to click this. You're going to click translate. So it's going to pull up everything, and then you can see we get these images right here. So it's showing what's actually in game, and then what you're attempting to do is you're trying to get this black box to show the text properly. So what you have to kind of do is you have to play around with the settings with brightness. See, so I can probably put my saturation back up to max, and we're playing with the brightness, and then color value, that doesn't really seem to be doing anything. We can do our changing the saturation, we can change the brightness, so probably bring that back down, color value, and what you're doing is you're just trying to get it as close as possible to something that's legible. Because this is a lot slower of a process, we can actually show it once I do get it set up. What you want to try and do is you can see right here in this text, it's very jumbled because of the fact of there's so many, how compressed that letter is. So you want to try and get it to where it's not as jumbled. I guess we could probably leave it as is and see what it translates as. So this is going to be less accurate than Textractor, but it is a workaround. I want to say that's as close as we can kind of get it right now. Maybe we can get it a little closer. This is something where once you have it set up and you have your settings, I'll show you in a second how to save it. You can go back in and you're not going to have to do a whole lot of this whole process over and over and over. So I think that's probably as good as we're going to get it for right now without spending too long of a time on it. So now we can minimize this out, and now what we're going to do is we're going to do auto on, and it should translate this now. Keyword is should. This is why it takes a lot longer. So then now it's showing that, and you can see, okay, this is not like that big or that good of a translation, right? We go to the next line of dialogue. And you can see here, it's taking a lot longer to load than Textractor. So one thing that I would say, if you are going to be using this, like I said, either for emulation or for the very rare instance of a visual novel that doesn't actually hook properly, is I would actually go back into this and I would just click without translator. It's still going to have all the same processes we just did, but then what I will also do is I would still open up Textractor even though it's not working for the program. And if you're wondering why, it's because I think this is going to save you a lot of extra time. It's going to save you a couple seconds between each and every individual translation, but that is going to add up over time considering it's a visual novel and it's going to take forever. So we can we'll detach from the game. And then what we're going to do instead is we're just going to click on this and we're going to go to clipboard. So now it is copying what is being translated from OCR Reader, and it's going to show it on the window that you have right here from Textractor. So when we go to our next line of dialogue, Sugoi translator / OCR is going to translate it, and then once it does, it's going to send that over to Textractor. Well, it's going to send it to the clipboard. You can go ahead and advance the next dialogue. So like I said, this is like very, very weird to kind of get it set up, but there you go. So now we have it on auto. We go to the next line of dialogue. You kind of have to wait a little while. Another thing that I've noticed is if you have a visual novel that has like a lot of motion, what will happen is that because it's reading off of imaging rather than like actually extracting, sometimes that can mess with when it's going to actually scan the game. So it's going to take a little while. If there's a character that's moving like left and right across the screen, it's like a little like jumping animation. It's going to have to wait until that character finishes doing that animation before the program's going to try and scan the game for the next line of dialogue. So it does take a little while of doing this. So now we can go ahead and do the next line of dialogue, and this should be scanning. I wasn't really paying a whole bunch of attention. This should be working, unless every time that I'm like clicking off, it's been doing it to where it's not doing a whole lot of things. As you can see, this is a very like finicky workaround. It does work, but obviously to a lesser degree than Textractor. I'm having issues setting it on auto, so that's another thing. We're doing this live, so you can see sometimes you have to kind of like click translate and then you click back to auto on, and then hopefully it should work. As you can see, we're having all kinds of issues. If you really wanted to, you could have this up the whole time and then you just click translate, but the auto button should be working. I don't know exactly why it's not. There you go. Now it's working, or at least it should. And as you see, the more dialogue you have, the longer it kind of takes to translate it. And then like, if you do have that issue, then yes, you kind of have to go back in, click translate, and then it's going to go to the next line of dialogue, and you're going to just click through. So that, yes, that is the second workaround for translating a visual novel. The one thing I forgot to mention is that once you do get the settings to where you're happy with the like overall translation, you're going to go ahead and you're going to go save settings, and you're going to save it to whatever location you want. But I swear in the past it used to do this automatically, but no longer. So we can call this like rail, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna do .json file, and then you're gonna save it. And then what you would do is to load your save file, you go back in to the folder that you just saved it to. You can click this, click open, and then it's gonna have all those settings saved. So as we're Textractor is going to automatically do it every single time upon booting up the game, you're gonna have to do this every single time that you boot up Sugoi. Open the game back up. You have to move your little translation box every time you boot up the game, and it's gonna get faster the more that you're playing the same game over and over. It's gonna get like repetition, and you're gonna kind of get into the swing of being able to do this whole process every single time you boot up a game. But then now this should work. If we go ahead, we just kind of like minimize that and we go translate, it should work because it's got all the savings previously saved. That reminds me, so we can go here, we go back over to our Textractor, and that should be in our clipboard. Keyword is should. We go back over to clipboard, bam, and then we can go click translate again, and this should be working. There you go. So it saves your settings. You want to make sure you save your settings after you go through the headache of setting all of the color splotches to where it'll properly read the text. Then also, what I will say is that you can't really put this over, because then if we click translate, it's going to come out as like a bunch of jarbled mess because it's trying to read the actual imaging. We can actually, here, I'll do this, advance to the next line of dialogue, and then we'll put this over here, right? So now if we click translate, as you can see, it messes up. And then as soon as we move that back off, it works again. So when I read games with OCR Reader, I kind of put it towards like the top of the screen. It's a little annoying if you're, especially like if you're used to reading it on the bottom. It takes a little bit of getting used to of like not looking at the bottom of your screen, looking at the top instead. And then also, one other thing I will say is that this is probably the only feasible, well, I say feasible, but it's not really that great, and I would wait for a solution if you're reading a visual novel that's untranslated that looks like Fate Stay Night. And by that I mean the style of where the text pops up. So in visual novels there's two different like forms. There is NVL and then ADV. So ADV stands for like adventure, which is the predominant amount of visual novels nowadays where all the text is here. If it's an NVL visual novel, don't ask me why we call it NVL, because that stands for novel, visual novel. Well, of course they're all visual novels, but where there's like the text in the center of the screen overlaying on top of the actual characters and the rest of like the backgrounds and stuff, and you have long stretches of dialogue that's going to pop up on screen. This is like the only way to really translate it, but I would not want to do this, right? Where you have a line of dialogue, you pop up, and you go, okay, well, I'm going to move my window here, and then I click next button, and then I move the, the box down, next line of dialogue, move the box down again, next dialogue, right? It's too much hassle. So I would say if you're somebody that wants to read a non-translated visual novel that has that style of text, I would maybe wait until hopefully someday there is a program that gets made that makes it easier to read that style of visual novel untranslated. Because believe me, I have at least one visual novel that has that kind of text, and I don't really exactly want to go through the headache of reading it like that. But yeah, I think that should be wrapping up for everything that, at least from my knowledge of how to work around and read non-translated visual novels as someone that doesn't know how to read Japanese or like Chinese for some of the like visual novels. I guess there is one last little thing, which is JP Locale, if you've heard of it. So we can go ahead and I can now finally close everything out, and we should be good. Now, what the hell is Japanese Locale? So what you're going to do is you're just going to go to your computer settings, and you're going to click on this, which is time and language. It might look a little different if you're not on Windows 10. What you're going to do is you're going to go here to the left side, click on region, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the additional date, time, and regional settings on the far right. You're going to go ahead, click on region, and then you have to go to administrative, and you would go to change system locale, and then you would just change it over to Japanese, in parentheses Japan. You're going to have to restart your computer if you do so. So yes, you're going to get this pop-up, and it's going to say you're going to need to restart your computer. I think I'm just going to go make sure I'm going to go back to US as of current. And why is this important? So if you are familiar with like consoles and importing other games, what you might know is that for certain consoles, there are like region locks that prevent you from being able to play software from other regions without having the hardware from that designated region. So like for an example, let's say the 3DS. If you wanted to import a Japanese 3DS game and play it, you would pop it into your system and then find out that it doesn't even pop up, and that's because there is a region lock. You have to buy both a Japanese 3DS console and the game in question in order to be able to play. It's kind of the same situation, a little different. Japanese locale, from what I understand, is basically like your computer's source files of like drawing the text and certain like very important features from one region to be able to support whatever software you are currently running. So if we were to go ahead and I could probably try and explain even further, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'll show you. So I haven't tried this, so if we pop up Aster, it's either going to not open at all, or we're going to probably have some issues where we're going to boot up and then we're going to have like a bunch of garbled text. So we'll see which of the two that's going to end up happening. Some games actually don't really mind if you run it in just like standard, whatever your language is as of default, but as you can see here, this is not Japanese text. So because I decided to try and run this without being in JP Locale, it is giving me something that Textractor is not going to be able to read, right? So we can click and the game works, but the like text does not. So that is like an example as to why JP Locale is necessary, because if not, you're going to end up running into some issues when it comes to being able to have like full compatibility of the game that you're trying to read. If you're trying to like figure out what's a good way to kind of test Textractor, if you don't want to like bite the bullet and buy a Japanese visual novel and not know how to like figure out working Textractor, you could do what I did. I know the people that were asking for this tutorial were coming from the Maitetsu video. I looked, so unfortunately, Luz, the studio that made Monobeno and Maitetsu, is no longer in business. And I looked around because I had previously been able to download a demo for Maitetsu Last Run, and I thought it was on the publisher's website. No, it was actually on the developer's website, so that website is shut down. So a demo for Maitetsu Last Run is like no longer available. However, what you could still do, there's many other probably Japanese demos you could download, but the one I did was I just went to Monobeno because that was the game that I was first looking into getting into Japanese visual novels, and what you do is you just download the demo here, and then you can go ahead and try and set up Textractor completely free of charge and just kind of test it out, see if it is something that you can work with, and if you're happy with the results, then go ahead and bite the bullet on whatever Japanese visual novels that you are excited to read. If you're getting a demo for a game and then you set up Textractor, then you go ahead and you get the full game, you're going to need to reset up those hooks. It shouldn't be any different than the way you did it on the demo, and it shouldn't be too difficult, but figure that's something that is worth mentioning. So yes, hopefully this has been a very helpful guide for those of you that are looking to get into reading untranslated visual novels and the various workarounds to do so. Like I said earlier in the video, for those of you that have a little bit more information, maybe something that I didn't personally speak on within this video, feel free to leave your knowledge down in the comments down below. I'm sure that any little bit of extra knowledge would be greatly appreciated to those that are looking to find this sort of information and reading untranslated visual novels, whether that be Japanese, Chinese, whatever. I've been Wave. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.